What is going on, Diablo 2 fans? Dobrinsky here, and today I'm going to be covering the Diablo 4 September update from Blizzard. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff jam-packed into this little news bit. So we're talking a brand new skill tree, as well as a sneak peek of the Sorceress enchantment system. So just giving us a little bit more insight on what Blizzard is planning for Diablo 4. Now, I get asked questions all the time about Diablo 4 and what I think, so I'm just going to give you guys my feedback on this little update. And of course, if you guys want to participate in the discussion, I stream twice a week on Twitch. We talk about Diablo 4 all the time during my live stream, so if you guys want to partake in that, hit me up with a follow. I'd really appreciate it. But guys, hope you enjoy this video. Let's jump in. So the first thing that is talked about is a reworking of ancestral, demonic, and angelic powers. Now this has been discussed in previous updates, and the kind of idea or premise behind the proposed idea was having to stack a certain amount of one of these three powers to unlock additional set bonuses on your gear. Now there's been a little bit of pushback from the community against this, quoting them as the reason why is it felt like is an excessive amount of bookkeeping for the player. Now myself personally, I might be a little bit biased here because I've played so much Diablo 2, but this doesn't really bother me making methodical decisions about stacking specific attributes on a character, because I do this all the time with FCR, FHR, and increased attack speed breakpoints on specific Diablo 2 builds, so it doesn't really bother me. Now what I would like to see is definitely having to kind of methodically make choices with your gear as you develop your character in Diablo 4, so I'm okay if it's not quite to the extent of like calculating breakpoints in Diablo 2, but I don't want to see it swung to the other end where you don't need to worry about it at all. So the next 2 points here are talking about the power of items when they come to characters' overall power. Now, based on community feedback again, they're trying to strike a better balance of the sources of power on your characters, so kind of a better split between build choices and gear choices. Myself personally, I'm actually okay with more of the power coming from itemization. Now, that doesn't mean that I want only one specific, type of item to be the source of power. Like, I still want widespread use of itemization, but I'm okay with most of the power coming from your gear versus your build choice, because I think that's kind of evident in some Diablo 2 gameplay. Again, a lot of Diablo 2 references, sorry, but a character in Diablo 2 with really good gear and garbage skill choice will work, but you switch it around, really good skill choice, but garbage gear, it's not really gonna get you anywhere. So it's one thing that I've always liked about Diablo 2 is just magic finding and item hunting and using items to make your character powerful. So I'm actually kind of against the grain on this one, but as long as it doesn't switch to the other end, where as long as you make kind of moderately correct build choices, that your character is going to work all the way to the very end. I don't want to see it that far. I would still like to see items have a very important role, but I guess based on feedback, they're trying to shift away from items being the majority of the source of power. And then the second point here, they're just asking for some feedback on itemization. So Blizzard, if you're listening, your question is, for example, should magic quality items have higher affix stats than rare items? This is one thing that I think Diablo 2 did really well. I'm going to fall back on this example that I've listed before, but Druid pellets in Diablo 2, magic Druid pellets, rare Druid pellets, set, and unique all have different uses for different builds. They're all viable. Now, a magic pellet won't really necessarily be the best in-slot choice for every single build, but for a specific niche build, magic might be the best, rare might be the best, unique, or set. What I don't want to see is falling into the trap of mid to late game not picking up specific items because you just know that they're not worth it. So filtering out magic or rares kind of in your late endgame grind is what I want to try and avoid. I want to be picking up different items and piecing them together to make different unique builds, because they'll all be sort of somewhat useful in endgame builds. That is one of the coolest things about Diablo 2, is just piecing together different items and making different builds work, and I would really like to see that put forth into Diablo 4. Next up is the skill tree. Now this is honestly the most exciting part for me of this blog update. It looks a lot different than what we were teased with at Blizzard. More complicated, but not quite to the extent of something like Path of Exile, and that's actually kind of more what I was hoping for in Diablo 4. Looks amazing too. It's this like burning tree with roots, and down here at the bottom are specific passive skills, and then as you work your way up here, you have certain skills that you can again further customize based on these little nodes as you progress through the tree. A really important point here is that they talk about how you can only fill up 30 to 40% of your skill tree. So I do really like this. I think that you need to make meaningful choices in your selection of skills. And then for illustration purposes, they got 2 of the sorcerer skills here, Charged Bolt and Ball Lightning. So just describing what they do and the damage that's dealt. Again, pre-alpha, but then they're showing how they can be customized with these different nodes as you work your way through the skill tree. So the customization for Charged Bolt is adding an additional bolt. And then for Ball Lightning collapses into crackling energy at the end of its path. So just ways of adding different variation to each skill. And I think this is really cool in terms of like build variability and customization for kind of your late end game. And then they have an example here of a passive skill tree. Now these are at the bottom of the tree and the roots. They kind of have an overall effect or shape on the skills in general, not necessarily specific skills. So kind of increasing your lightning damage or reducing lightning resistance on monsters. They're just a way of shaping the overall general tree and not necessarily impacting a single particular skill. So my overall thoughts on what I've seen so far from the skill tree, I think it's really good. It's definitely a lot better than what we saw early on in Blizzard. That was kind of a really dumbed down skill tree that you didn't really have to make any meaningful decisions. So this is a little bit more in that direction, but it's not quite to the extent of something like PoE, where you can basically get completely lost in the skill tree. So I really like this, and I really am a big fan of customizing each individual skill. So it's just a cool way of adding more build variation and just different character builds to try as you're playing through Diablo 4. Next big topic is the Sorceress enchantment system. Now this is kind of similar to the Arsenal system for the Barbarian that was covered in the previous Diablo 4 update, but Blizzard's goal here is to have unique class-specific mechanics for every character build in Diablo 2, and they're proposing here, or they're giving us an early snapshot of this enchantment system for the Sorceress. Now, basically how it works is you're going to have 2 different skills, and you can either select them to be an active skill or an enchantment slot. And just illustrating here, they have this meteor skill. If it's in your active slot, you can actually determine where you want to drop it. If you move it to an enchantment slot, it gains its own different ability. You can't actually actively cast it, but they're showing here that it will randomly drop on monsters for you as you're playing and attacking with the different skill. So I really do like this. I think it's very cool that we're getting kind of sneak peeks of specific class mechanics for every character. So we know we have the Druid, the Sorceress, and the Barbarian, and we've covered the Arsenal system. We're getting a little kind of sneak peek of the Sorceress enchantment system. I think this is really cool because if you think about it, every single skill can be either used as an active one or you have the chance of using it in an enchantment. So just really kind of build versatility. So I'm really big fan of this. I think it's a really cool idea. It'll be interesting to see what it's like for the Druid and the other 2 characters, which we don't know what they're going to be yet. But yeah, overall thoughts on this is I think it's very promising. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. The final little section here talks about the endgame progression system and how they're going to talk about it more in the next Diablo 4 update. But they did mention here that the endgame is going to be a significant source of power that comes from your class. Now, myself personally, I am a fan of the finite leveling system. So again, another Diablo 2 reference. 99 is the complete character cap. You have a certain amount of attribute points and a certain amount of skill points. I don't know how I feel about a significant source of power coming from grinding endgame content. Now, I think if grinding endgame content is a way of getting certain specific items, I'm okay with that, but I don't necessarily want to see something where like half your power just comes from doing endgame over and over and over again. Maybe something if it was split like 85 to 90% of your power comes from just getting through the game and then getting some pretty good items, and then that extra little 10% is rewarded from those that want to continue to keep doing the endgame content and making themselves that much stronger. Kind of trying to find the balance. I mean, maybe actually want to be a little bit less than that. Maybe kind of like that 90 is a little bit too much, because I do want to see people get rewarded that sink hours into the game versus somebody that just is a playthrough is kind of done with Diablo 4 after like say like sinking 20 hours into it. I don't think it's kind of right to have someone that sinks 1,000 hours in the game being barely stronger than someone that sinks 20 hours, but I also don't want to see like a huge source of your character power coming from just doing the endgame content over and over and over again. Now, they did talk about how this concept of easy to learn and difficult to master, that's been mentioned in previous updates as well. So I hope that again, they're talking about this endgame content being geared towards being that difficult to master and giving you more stuff to work towards and more replayability, because that is kind of the downside of really Diablo 2 or Diablo 3 ladder resets, is after a couple weeks everything just dies down. So it'll be really cool to see what the key dungeon stuff, what it's going to provide for kind of endgame replayability. So overall, I am pretty excited with this blog post. We got a lot of big content updates. I really like the reworking of the skill tree. Don't necessarily know how we feel about this endgame progression system, but the beauty of these blog posts is that they're actually listening to community feedback. So let me know in the comment section below what you guys think. If you agree with anything that I said, or if I'm totally wrong, or some of you agree with, some of you don't, please let me know. I like interacting with you guys. Just good Diablo 4 discussion. As always though, if you could throw a like on this video, share it, and even consider subscribing if you're new to my channel. I post new weekly content on YouTube, and I stream twice a week on Twitch. So a follow on Twitch and a sub on YouTube would be amazing. Other than that, guys, hope you have a fan-frickin-tastic day, and I'll catch you on my next video or live stream. Peace out.